So now we are at the second part of the book, and this is the first talk in the second part talking about how we make decisions. And there are two parts to how we make decisions. The first one is psychologically, that means the processes inside us, the intentions we have, and the dreams and thoughts that binds us inside our head and mind. And that's one part of it, and that's for the psychology, but it also, of course, interferes in the sociological sphere. But their goals and the talk about the psychology is different from the one on sociology, where we are looking into how we make decisions as part of an interrelational network and in a rational way that makes sense for society. And so we're looking at it from the perspective of sociology, the science of the human gathering and interactions. And we are looking at it in how it makes sense in the structures and networks that we are part of. And what is it that makes us make these decisions? So they were going to talk about this and what motivates us and who actually have the power. There's something here about power and values and traditions. And so we're going to go through some of these thoughts to see how decisions are made from the perspective of how we interact with society sociologically. And so anything that happens has a causality. We call it like the reason and the consequence. If I throw a stone on the window and the window breaks, that's a causality. Well, the stone broke the window because I threw it at it, and the force of the stone was big enough physically to do that. And so that's what we look into when we look into actions of people. But there are other side of it. There is the side of the actor himself or herself. Why did that person throw the stone on the window? Has it been a bad place to be? Has it been a suppressive place? Is this guy or person just angry, poor, want to break in? What's the conditions and life situations that made this person want to break that window? And so here we are already into a field of what we call actors, human actions, directions, and motives, and the conditions, the social conditions that's behind the actions of the individual. Because sociology has found out through studies of people and their behavior that behavior can change in different conditions and circumstances. So society has an impact on how we act. And it has also a way of dealing with how we act. So it's not only just a way of acting that we are responsible for what we are doing. We are at all times responsible unless we've lost our minds. And even that can be read into a sociological framework. So much of our actions as actors in society can be seen in according to Zygmunt and Tim May here, it can be seen in two ways. The first one is the unreflected. It's a kind of routine. I just always do that. And the second one is affective. So you have the routine and the affections that are unreflected actions. So, well, why do you make the coffee in the morning? Why do you turn on the lights? Why do you do this, do that? I've always been doing that. I do not really think about it. And the second one is affective. It's the basis of, what can you say, the emotions and the things that drives you to make that action from inside you that can sometimes be ununderstandable. Why did you leave the restaurant? Well, I really don't know why. I got angry. Something happened inside me. I felt unsatisfied. And so these are irrational behaviors. We call them irrational behaviors because they do not make sense in a framework that can be read and understood there personally. Of course, they can be understood from psychological perspective. If you go into that person, see why he got mad and why he reacted and what happened to him in that situation, you can maybe understand more why this special place made him react the way he does, or why he has made the coffee every morning since he was a kid. But even that can be read into a sociological frame, because how had society and interpersonal relationship and interaction had of effect on this person, so he will react like that at that moment in society. This is also part of what is discussed in sociology, that sometimes we are part of the structure that had already formed us and made us to who we are. And so you can say even the criminals who go and do things that are very bad, even those can be read in that sociological framework of how their uprising has been, what conditions they have been under, what kind of possibilities they have had and choices, what kind of routines they have been used to, what kind of values they have been manipulated or maybe made to understand is the important. Because we know from many of these people that they say, well, since I was a kid, my dad told me everybody who hits you hits back. The only thing in life is to take what you want. We have seen it a lot with these American movies about mobsters and the boss who wants to break the rules and go against society and starts his own empire. It's that kind of logic. And where did that come from? It's irrational according to society, but it comes from society itself as well. That does not mean that that person is not responsible, because there is also things that shows that there can be traits in the person, a deformity in the brain or the mind or the psyche since the birth or maybe since childhood that has had such a big impact and effect on that person that he had to do that crime and at one time in his life, or maybe act out as he or she did in a very disturbing and maybe tragical way for the society around them. And so the continuous study of, oh my God, why did this go wrong again? Why is there a school shooting? Why did this guy go in and blow things up, or whatever people are doing? And you can relate that to psychological issues, but you can also relate it to sociological issues. So that's still the first type of behavior that can be studied, called the irrational one, of the routines and the affections. The other one is called very logically the rational behavior. That's not so hard to guess. Well, the rational behavior and the rational actions on your motives is made by two kind of decisions. One is that you have a rational target, you have a goal you want to achieve, and the other one is the value rational behavior. So one can be when you are going towards a goal, you have some kind of vision, and you have some kind of goal you want to go to, and you have put a lot of targets on the way you want to reach, and so your actions are defined by some kind of rational, in sociological sense, rational behavior. Okay, this guy is working towards this and that. We know why he's going in that direction, starting this company and hiring these workers and doing this and that and firing people and doing whatever is needed to get to that goal or target. And the value rational behavior is the other side of it. And that one is close to, well, what you believe in. What you believe is the right thing to do, and how things should be. And you can say that is also related to the affections, yes, but at the same time, it is affections you have already worked yourself through. You have already worked out what you want to believe in and what you think is good and bad. And so you act on this in society, like when you see the mass movement in the street of achieving the goal for handicapped people, achieving goals of equality for all women, and so on. And so you have these kind of value-based actions that make sense. They are rational in many ways. That doesn't mean that if these people acting on their values go out and do something against the law, that we call it rational. Or if they storm a place and destroy it, and we can say, well, we knew that this was a rational, value-based rationality. No, that's not what's the meaning of it. The meaning of it is that there can be actions that are based on things that people know they want to achieve. And so you understand when things go in a certain direction, why they go. And here, the sociologist has been looking into, well, what makes people succeed in these issues? What kind of resources do they have available? We talked in one previous video about the material and symbolic values. That was the definition of what kind of resources you had available. So you had the symbolic resources, and you have the material resources that makes you achieve your goals and act in society, and maybe get through to power or get lost and lose what you have been out to achieve. One of those who have really been looking into that and how to see how the empowered people with privileges can get more out of the system and the society than those that are unprivileged or maybe depraved. And so how these different kind of resources are used sometimes also to manipulate things and to maybe drive them in a certain way. You remember we talked about those influences and people who cheer for the singer, and the singer becomes important for the privileged people, and the privileged people will invest a lot in that singer or in that special star or person, so they can make their voice heard when they need to be re-elected or get things through in a way in front of the people. And so they are manipulating the resources to their use. And Pierre Bourdieu has especially been looking into these things, and also how kids can change their life conditions by getting empowered by these symbolic resources. And so let's see a little bit on that. I think one day I will give a talk because I've given a lot of thoughts and read into that in my days when I studied, and I like Pierre Bourdieu a lot, and I could relate to some of these things he said. I think they are very important for society and life, and I've given 2 lectures on it in the social seminary in Greenland on how we understand these things of Pierre Bourdieu and how it works. But here, very shortly, the idea that he looks into is that he say, well, everything you have available is called a kind of capital. You have something you can use to achieve your rational goals, to get where you want to go. And so you have the material, all right, we understand that. Money, a place to be, a car, whatever you need of material things that can help you achieve your goal, a telephone, and so on. You can pay the bills, hire somebody to help you, advertise, and so on. And then you have the other side that's equally important, maybe more important, and that's the symbolic one, the symbolic capital that you have. And so that can be cultural and symbolic and economical. And so everything you have, it can be this economical capital, as I just mentioned earlier. It can be symbolic, it can be cultural. And the meaning of these 3, very, very shortly, is that these resources you have, as we said, you can use the telephone, you can buy a car, you can make an advertisement, you can use the money you have to achieve your goal. That's the economical capital that you have. And so the symbolic resource is that maybe you are allied with a very famous person who can go with you to the place where you want to get through with an application, or you want to talk to people, and you will be listened to very, very differently than if you come alone, impoverished, and nobody knows you, and maybe people have a bad meaning about you. So this symbolic capital that you have in yourself or in what you have around you can make a big difference. So when a president or somebody with big influence shows up to some things you are doing, that will bring more attention, sometimes negative attention, but it can bring attention to what's going on there than if you just show up alone and there is nobody to empower you. And the third one is the cultural, and that's the relations you are related to. Can you pick up the phone and call the mayor of a big town and say, listen, we have this and that going on. Can you get hold of some important aspects or people, maybe a gang even? These are all cultural resources you can use as a capital, as a way of getting through with your rational goals in society. This is very shortly and not exact to the point, because we're going to talk about it hopefully in a different place. And so we can see that we have power, values, and traditions as 3 ways of acting on our way of achieving what we want. And the power is that we can use the force of getting through to achieve what we want of goals oriented towards what we want to realize. And here we can see that some people can have a bigger impact because of the power they hold. They are more privileged. They have access to people with power, and that will help them most of the time get through or get away with things as well. And so we can see that's a very important thing that has also occupied sociologists and people for a long time, that power is something that's needed and important. And how can you deal with that? And how can you make sure that some people do not run off with power in a corrupt manner? And so the power is actually giving us access to get through to what we want, while the people who are powerless, well, have very limited opportunities and possibilities, and their decisions won't get through, while the others will make the decisions on behalf of everyone. And so we can be more autonomous having power than people without power who will be heteronomous, like dependent. And so the autonomy of the power and people in power can be like larger or smaller depending on how much power they have. Is it absolute power? Is it power dependent on a constitution or an elected members of a parliament or some kind of city council or whatever kind of the organization who chose them, the owners, the board of members in a big company? Whoever put them there can limit their powers, and so they have to look into that. While people without power are more dependent on people with power, even though they have just a little bit power upon them. And here we come to what they call the reduction of freedom and the reduction of fulfilling your goals. As we said earlier, humans act and move towards some motivated goals. They have motives. They want to achieve something, get rich or become famous or get an education or just have peace from everyone. Whatever you're going to do in society, you have to have power to do it, and you need capital to influence what you want to get through with. And so you can be very limited and reduced if you cannot get through, or you are maybe opposing some people with power who wants the same thing, and they can push you aside and get through to the education system. Because if you are going to apply for a position and the kid of that very powerful man or woman is also applying, and the people sitting there, they are really knowing that, and these people can influence the future of that university or whatever board members will be voting next time, and these people know that, well, whatever cleverness you can have of what you call symbolic cultural power, it will be put in the second rate than the person who has the economical power and decision power. So that is also something Bourdieu has been looking into and saying, well, how does these things actually go, and how do people actually get through with things, and what's more important? And so we see there are all these kinds of small hidden situations that we many times can feel. We know they are there, and we know this how things happens, but we cannot really prove them. And that's what sociology has been out doing, trying to prove and tell you, listen, this is what's going on. These people have economical power, they have symbolic power, and they have cultural power, and they will get through and get their kid into that place that was meant for your kid because your kid was actually smarter. That's a kind of symbolic power as well, but it's not enough. It's a capital you have, being smart, being high IQ'd. But if the other guy has all the means to get through, he will get the position before you, and so on and so on. Every aspect of life. It can be the job, it can be getting through with a political decision in one way or another. But sometimes it happens that these people sitting there are not so affected by these persons, or maybe reject them or go opposing them, or have another power in their back to stand up to them. And so they go and choose the right person who has the highest IQ for the position of the university and really fit in to that place. And sometimes these people with power can also push people out who are not going their way, as we talked about earlier in another video, that the majority will push the minority out, and the people who have the power to get through with their way of life will oppose people who are different and would like to set borders and limit their activities, limit their power and access. And so that can also be used in that way. And so you have a kind of use of power with force. And that force can be manipulation, can be direct force, can be a kind of indirect effect on those who make the power. So you seem forced without anybody forcing you. It's like we have seen many times in stories that, well, they come and sit in a place and tells the leader, yeah, I remember where you were that night, and they do not say anything more, but the guy understands, they know my history, and if I do not do what they want, and then he immediately asks them, what do you want? Cut that crap. What do you want? Or he says, go to hell. I won't care what you want to do to me. And then they find him dead next day or something. Or maybe he's lucky to get away because somebody is helping him, somebody with other kind of power who's opposing the corrupt use of power in that manner. So force, to use force in a manipulative way, sometimes or many times hidden if they can get away with it, is the way of getting through for people who have the power in the society. And so many times our actions are defined by power. The second one is our actions are also, and motives, and what can you say, goals are defined by values. So we go to realize something that we believe in, and we see realistic, and that we are dreaming of having one day. These can be ideal goals, it can be racist goals, it can be several goals for a small group, whatever it is. The values do not always need to be the good ones or the ideal ones or the big ones. It can be any kind of value you are trying to achieve. If you believe in the value of a small group controlling everything because they are the chosen ones and they need to affect power over a whole nation, well, you will work for that value and you will do what you can to achieve it. And so they ask here the question, where do values come from and why do we have these values when we have a goal? And they, I don't think they give a lot of clear answer because the time, the space is limited for that. But values is also a difficult thing to get around and to understand fully and where they come from. But values is the choice you make based on what you have made up your mind is right and wrong, and you have worked through the process of your affections, and you have chosen how to look at the world and yourself and how things should be. And so that's where they stem from, at least. And sometimes the values are just inherited. You get them from the people before you, and then you continue on the same line. And so with these values comes what you call the hegemony. You have a hegemonic position because you have the power and the right values that support your power. Because you tell yourself, my values are the right ones, I am protecting society, I am helping the right people against the evils or the bad things, or I'm achieving what is meant to me to achieve, whatever they tell themselves. Or I want this ideal society to become totally equal, and I have a dream, and all these things that people also can have in the values, and that gives you a position of hegemony. That means you feel superior to the situation and to the others and to what their goals and values are. And if you have the power on your side at the same time, well, you can get through with your values, whatever they are, good or bad, for the better of benefit of the many or the few. The values are not per se chosen by power, but the power is chosen by people who have the values. They want the power to get through with that, and that's where the clashes come. A third way of making decisions is the traditional legitimacy. And that means that somebody has been chosen at one time in history, and then it has been like that forever. And the first thing we think about is a king, but it can be also kind of organization or institution or political system, that, well, we have the tradition of choosing this and that kind of people, and they are the ones who have the legitimacy to do whatever it is that's need to be done. And under that, or alternatively to that, can be the charismatic legitimacy. That means a person can stand out with a great power of influence and a way of speaking and great personality, and you can just sense the power in that person. That's called the charisma. The person gets through to you and impact you and have this force over you in ways you do not understand. You just seem taken in by that power, that person's personality and presence and arguments and feelings, and you're just taken in. And that kind of charisma can also be a source of decision making, and of course also not least the source of power. And imagine you can combine both your values with power, both the material and symbolic one, and then you have a charisma all over that, and you have a legitimacy in traditions. And so you have the whole package, and you can be the ultimate leader for whatever you want to achieve and for whom you want to achieve it for. So all this is about legitimacy and how to make things acceptable. Is it legitimate to go through this kind of processes? Is it okay to use power to those goals? Do we agree on the values that these people are trying to achieve? Do we feel that it's wrong? Is it okay that this guy who wants to get his kid in is forcing his way through by manipulation and indirect use of the invested power in him from maybe city council? He has a symbolic power with him, or he's brought somebody with power with him to show that he can get through with this if he wants. And so by talking about this, we hopefully can get a lot of associations to how things are run and be. And that doesn't mean that they should be different, because whatever you do, even in the most chaotic, this is my comment now because they are finished talking about this issue. It has been a lot of my comments through the book, sorry to say, through the chapter. But now finally I want to say that you can also go to very so-called anti-authoritarian groups who want to be anarchic and chaotic, like the hippies. If they we have in Denmark a place where the hippies started to have a community that everything should be equal and free and you can do what you like. But after a short time they found out, and I was told this by people who have lived there. This is not just my observations, and it's people who have lived there who talked about, say, well, after some time we found out we needed a bit of rules. So we started like making small rules, and we started debating, and the ones who had the best argument, or people who had exactly that of the charisma, or maybe bigger impact on the others, or maybe had some kind of symbolic value for people. Oh, he's this and that, or she is this and that, and she knows more about this issue, so let's listen to her. It's like the expert on environment. You can either listen to them or go totally against them, depends on the interest and how you see them. And so they, even in those very anarchic societies, they find out that you cannot live anarchically for a long time. It will go back to that hierarchy and legitimacy, and you will need a structure of power. You will go and listen to the most charismatic person or build on tradition. So you will have to make these choices anyway. So by talking about this is not like saying, oh, let's all revolt and we don't need all this anymore and let's free ourselves from society. Well, that's what we also want, but we can't. And so the best thing is to make things run in the interest of the whole as possible. So, and in the interest of those who behold the better views, or maybe bring forth the better equipment, or whatever people can have. Like this guy with the highest IQ, he can maybe achieve a lot more than this kid that is spoiled, but because he's the son of somebody influential, they will give him the post and leave that other more deserved kid outside. And to keep these things in balance needs a lot of talk and needs a lot of, especially revision of the human psyche and how it works, and especially that people with power almost must adhere to a kind of consciousness and law and order and a kind of responsibility and feeling responsible to a higher power that can reach them and give them consequences if they go out of the line and if they start misusing the system and becoming corrupt. And that's the eternal struggle, especially in the open societies, the places where they really want to create this kind of life where everyone feels empowered. That's an eternal struggle that keeps going on to expose corruption, to keep going after people who is trying something with their power or legitimacy or charisma or whatever, and show how they can be corrupt. But sometimes those exposures can also be bad for society, and so they don't want to expose them too much, or there's somebody motivated to expose people with power just to put somebody else in place. So it gets sometimes too tiring and too complicated. But so let's keep it here to this part, that it is about making decisions. We are motivated by motives and actions to achieve goals, and we do that by using the resources we have, and we do that by different means, using power and by using tradition and by using values to make and adjust things for ourselves or our group in society. It was a bit hard, and I hope it came out clear anyway. It's not easy to talk about these things and make them easy understood, and I hope it wasn't a total waste of time anyhow, but that's how it is, going through some ideas that can be difficult to talk about. But it's beautiful for me at least, and whoever is listening, hope has had an enjoyable and good time getting something out of this, and it wasn't a waste of time.